Loss of control. The incredible story of Delta Airlines Flight 1086. The airport was bustling, an orchestra of rolling luggage, hurried footsteps, and the occasional overhead announcement echoing through the terminal. Delta Airlines Flight 1086 was scheduled for a routine flight from Atlanta to LaGuardia. Captain Greg Hawthorne, a seasoned pilot with over 15 years of experience, leaned against the cockpit door, chatting with First Officer Rachel Carter. It was a crisp February morning, with snow gently falling outside, a perfect day for a quick flight, or so it seemed. Passengers boarded the plane, unaware of the lurking storm. Among them was Mark, a nervous flyer traveling for an important business meeting, and Sophia, a university student returning home after a semester abroad. Their lives, along with the other 120 passengers and 5 crew members, were about to change forever. As the plane taxied to the runway, the weather took a sudden turn. Thick clouds rolled in, the wind howled louder, and snowflakes transformed into an aggressive blizzard. Captain Hawthorne's calm demeanor faltered for a brief moment as he exchanged a glance with Rachel. "We'll keep a close eye on the conditions," he muttered. The plane roared to life, the engine screaming as it ascended into the stormy sky. Inside the cabin, passengers buckled in tightly, some gripping armrests, others distracted by their phones or books. Mark closed his eyes, murmuring a silent prayer, while Sophia stared out the window, mesmerized by the swirling storm. Then, without warning, turbulence hit. The aircraft lurched violently, throwing drinks off trays and eliciting gasps from passengers. The overhead lights flickered. Captain Hawthorne's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've encountered unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." But something was wrong. Very wrong. Up in the cockpit, alarms blared. The aircraft's instruments were malfunctioning, and the snowstorm had reduced visibility to nearly zero. Ice was forming rapidly on the wings, compromising the plane's aerodynamics. "The icing system is struggling to keep up," Rachel shouted, her voice strained. "Switch to manual controls," Greg commanded, his hands steady but his eyes betraying a flicker of panic. Back in the cabin, panic was spreading. The turbulence worsened, and the plane dipped sharply, causing screams to erupt. Mark's heart raced as he clutched the armrests, his knuckles white. Sophia tried to calm the elderly woman beside her, but fear gripped her as well. As the plane continued to descend, Greg and Rachel fought to regain control. But then, the unthinkable happened, a sudden mechanical failure in the left engine. "We've lost power in Engine 1, Rachel yelled. Greg's mind raced. They were approaching LaGuardia, but the storm made a normal landing impossible. "We're declaring an emergency," he said, his voice firm. "Prepare for an emergency landing." The announcement sent waves of fear through the cabin. Flight attendants moved quickly, instructing passengers to brace for impact. Sophia held the elderly woman's hand tightly, whispering words of comfort. Mark, drenched in sweat, fumbled to fasten his seatbelt tighter. In the cockpit, Greg and Rachel worked in unison, their training taking over. "We'll attempt a landing on runway 13, Greg said, scanning the storm-covered landscape. "It's risky, but we don't have a choice." As the plane descended, the snowstorm intensified. LaGuardia's runway came into view, a narrow strip barely visible through the blizzard. "Gear down," Greg ordered. The landing gear deployed with a shudder. The plane approached the runway at an alarming speed. Greg gripped the controls, his jaw clenched. "Easy, easy," he murmured. But just as the wheels touched down, the left engine gave out completely, sending the aircraft skidding uncontrollably. Passengers screamed as the plane veered off the runway, barreling through snowdrifts and heading straight for the icy waters of Flushing Bay. Greg pulled the emergency brakes with all his strength, the plane shuddering violently as it finally came to a halt, just feet away from the water's edge. The cabin was eerily silent for a moment, the only sound being the howl of the storm outside. Then chaos erupted. Smoke filled the air as passengers scrambled to unbuckle their seatbelts. Flight attendants shouted instructions, guiding people toward the emergency exits. Mark helped Sophia and the elderly woman to the nearest exit, his fear replaced by adrenaline. Outside, the freezing wind bit at their faces as they slid down the emergency chute into the snow. Greg and Rachel stayed in the cockpit, ensuring everyone was evacuated safely. "We did it," Rachel whispered, her hands trembling. Greg nodded, but his face remained grim. They had avoided disaster, but just barely. Within minutes, emergency responders arrived, braving the storm to assist the passengers and crew. Blankets were distributed, and people were led to safety. Mark and Sophia huddled together, grateful to be alive. The investigation into Flight 1080 SAX's near-catastrophic landing revealed a series of mechanical failures exacerbated by the extreme weather conditions. Captain Greg Hawthorne and First Officer Rachel Carter were hailed as heroes for their quick thinking and skill under pressure. For the passengers, the experience left an indelible mark. Mark, once terrified of flying, found himself inspired by the bravery he witnessed that day. Sophia, who had always dreamed of adventure, decided to pursue a career in aviation safety, determined to make air travel safer for everyone. Delta Airlines Flight 1086 became a story of survival, courage, and the unyielding human spirit. A reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope can prevail. As the storm finally cleared, the passengers and crew of Flight 1086 looked back at the mangled plane resting on the snowy runway, a testament to their shared ordeal. For all of them, life would never be the same again.